Hi everyone, this is Anil. In this video, we will talk about a system property called glide invalid underscore query dot return no rows and is valid encoded query method. To demonstrate this, we'll make use of a fixed script. So if you see here, this is a fixed script which is basically querying CMDB server table and verifying if the class name is CMDB server. And it is running an encoded query, then it's running a query and it's trying to update the short description. Now here the problem is the encoded query has an incorrect column name. It is sys underscore class underscore NAME, but it is misspelled as NA. Now let's run this on the table first and see what happens. So this is my server table, and here I'm updating the syspam query as sys class NA. Now as you can see here, if I give this incorrect query, right, then ServiceNow is returning me all the records, which is 3482 records. The same thing will happen when you run the query from the fixed script as well. So if I execute this and proceed in the background, look at the progress workers, you will see that while it identifies, so it is saying that it is updating all this 3482 records, which is incorrect because I only wanted to update a subset of it. Now, let's try to apply the system property. So first we go here, we'll change this to true and save this. And let's see what happens now. If I execute the fixed script, let's proceed and go back to progress workers. So it will say invalid query detected, please check the logs, right? So I get this message, and then, but it also kind of, the records updated count, if you see, it is 0, which means it identified that the query is invalid and it did not query the table. Now let's do the same thing at the table level. Like if I go back here, if I refresh this table, you can see that now it says sysID is not valid, which means this system property applies at the table level queries also, in addition to the glide record queries, right? Now let's see how we can make use of the method that we have discussed, right, which is valid encoded query. Now, in addition to the system property, if you also apply this validation in your script, where you are where you are verifying if this encoded query is valid by using this method is valid encoded query. So what you can do is you can proactively throw a exception if this happens like this. So let's try this first. So now I'm using this variable called isValidEncodedQuery, and isValidQuery, which is returning, which is capturing the output from isValidEncodedQuery. This should be a Boolean variable. And here I'm checking if this is valid, then only apply the encoded query, do the query, and do the next steps, right? So let's save this and execute it. I want to refresh the progress workers. So now you can see that there is an exception. And again, encoded query is invalid. Please check and update the script. So now we are throwing an exception here. And this is what is coming up in the log, right? But in this case, if you observe, it did not even reach to the point where it is printing the record count. So which means it did not come here. So it terminated the script at this point only. So depending on how you want the script to function, for example, if you want the script to stop executing as soon as it finds this error, then you can do that by using a throw. Or if you want to move forward, then you can, if you don't have to throw any exception, but apply this if condition so that you don't accidentally run the query on the table, and then you can still move forward with the next steps in the script. Right, now let's take it to the next level and apply a try catch on top of this. So if you see here, and let's catch this message, save this. So now whatever we are throwing in the throw statement, that error message we are going to catch now. So if I go back here, and so you can see that now we are catching the exception, encoded query is invalid, please check and update the script. So now let's understand this a little bit. So if you see here, the execution of catch statement, we are passing this EX as an exception message, but we are not using this EX dot message because in the throw statement, I'm just passing a string and not a JSON. That is where I'm not using that's where I'm not trying to fetch the message from within this object. I'm directly consuming it because this is a string. And also now let's change this to the correct class name and then try and apply this and see if it works. So again, before executing it, we can verify this in the table. So let's go back to table and run this here. So this time it is correct. Now all the records with the class name have come up successfully, right? Now let's execute the script and see what happens. Save this, run fix script, progress workers. And now it is updating 3221 records, right? So I still have my update statement off, which is fine, but the goal is like we are able to uh, increment the counter and then prove that it is going to update those records. So that is how that works. We'll do a quick recap. We're talking about a system property, glide invalid query, return no rows, and a function is valid encoded query. This system property is not enabled out of the box. You have to add it to the instance, and the value will be set to true. When this is set to true, when you run an invalid query on the instance, it will detect it and it will prevent the execution from happening. In addition to that, if you also want to apply additional validation in your script, then you can use a method called isValidEncodedQuery, where you will do the check first to see if the encoded query is invalid before you make any add encoded query calls, so that you don't accidentally run invalid queries. And yeah, thank you for watching. This is Anil.